Welcome back inside the den. Hey, really fun one today. I am joined today by Kevin McReynolds, a former Nevada football player, 2015, and an entrepreneur. He runs Overnght. Is it Overnght Media or just Overnght?
We just call it Overnght.
Just Overnght. All right. How you doing, Kevin? Good to have you on the pod.
Well. Doing really well. Coming on the plane a little earlier today was really interesting seeing all the wildfires, but
yeah,
doing really well.
Yeah, it's at the time of this recording, the Davis fire is out there in South Reno, kind of near my neck of the woods, so a little sweat going on for me. But yeah, you were saying that you went to Friday, this past Saturday's game, kind of saw the start of it, and obviously returned today, and it's still going.
Yeah. My prayers and wishes go out to everybody that's kind of dealing with this. I know it's really tough on the Reno community, and this has always been a home for me. So I really want to see people, pull it through, and I hope there's not too much destruction at the end of this.
Yeah, it's a tight knit community, and we rarely see any type of catastrophes or types of wildfires that are this close to Reno. So hopefully everyone's all right. People that are listening, hopefully your homes are okay. We wish you guys the best. But we're going to get into our conversation with Kevin. Kevin, you played here 2015. We're going to talk a little bit about your media company and obviously in the NIL world. But just as a Nevada football player, being here for a year, you're ingrained in the community. Just how cool was it to come back and see the game? Obviously ended in a loss to Georgia Southern, but just how cool was it to return to Mackey this past Saturday?
It's awesome. Obviously the community is amazing here, and the people, and seeing the steps that the team has taken over the last year, and playing some really competitive football, and obviously they beat a pretty good Troy team a couple weeks ago, and so seeing what the coaches have done, I think it's been huge. As I'm hopeful for the future as they kind of continue to take these steps forward.
Yeah, it's been a good start to the season. Jeff Choate's teams, this team has been a lot more competitive than it has been, the past two seasons. So certainly an exciting thing, not only from a former 100%. Player perspective, but as if you're a member of the Wolfpack community. So yeah, it should be an exciting season. Minnesota coming up. But let's get into kind of what you're doing nowadays. Just a little bit about you. You went to UCLA prior to your time in Nevada, and where did you grow up?
So I'm actually from Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Right outside of there, and I played football at St. John's College High School in D.C. Produced a lot of really good talent out of there. I think we had, in the last couple of years, we've got a few people in the Super Bowl consistently. Nice. Really, that D.C. area is a hotbed for talent.
Yeah.
But I ended up going to UCLA for my undergrad, graduated from there, and then my last year of eligibility, Coach Polian came to get me.
Yeah.
And it was funny because my official visit weekend, it was just snowing everywhere. It was crazy. Yeah. And obviously, living in L.A., you don't really see that too often. So it was really good to come back up here. But the community really opened their arms to me, and I have a lot of really good friends and people that'll be in my life until the end of it. So I'm really happy and proud of the time that I spent here in this community, and that's why I continue to keep coming back.
You, as a former collegiate athlete, obviously the world has changed with the NIL. Just walk us through your experience. Obviously, you were a scholarship player, but you had all these rules and bylaws that you weren't allowed to accept payments, accept that, or accept meals, for example. But how envious are you just to see these kids and the talented ones at least get their bag, just in college?
It's funny because when I was at UCLA, I was actually deemed ineligible one game because how I made money in the off season was I used to throw concerts, and it's funny. I had all these artists that I worked with, and we would throw concerts at colleges all over the country. And one day, I remember getting a letter. Actually, UCLA just played Virginia, and this was a home game for me, and I was seeing my family, and someone walked up after and said, "Hey, you're ineligible," and then I wrote a letter talking about how the NCAA had consistently put out this commercial that we're all going to go pro in something else. And I remember I word for word took their commercial and put it in a statement and sent it to them. And then like less than 12 hours later, they were just like, okay, you're good to go. But I think it's what these athletes are getting now and an opportunity to set up their lives for success. And I'm really happy for them. But I do think that I think there needs to be some guardrails here so that the train doesn't come off the tracks.
But let's get into that. I mean, like, there's obviously people on both, like, there's pros and cons to it. Obviously, it creates a free agent market in a sense for your bigger sports in football and basketball. But some naysayers would say, hey, the part of the mystique and the lure of college sports was that the kids were playing for passion. But, on the other end, it'd say like, hey, the NCAA is kind of benefiting off the backs and likeness of these athletes. So where do you fall in that? Like, obviously it's not quite one or the other, but it's probably, a gray area just in terms of NIL.
Well, I think college sports has always been a business. And I think that we need to understand it as that first. It is a business. There's millions of dollars and billions of dollars now with these new TV deals that are out there. And so I think we need to be aware of that, one. I think the next kind of step to that is these are student athletes, as much as sometimes it may not seem that way, but they are student athletes. And I think that we need to figure out what serves the student athlete at its core first, because that's the bigger part of this. But I think the next part of that is how the system can work together to accomplish the goals of these athletes graduating. But also there's now a financial component with NIL that these athletes can save a bunch of money to move on in life. I think the issue that we need to start looking at now, though, from a long-term perspective is how do we make sure that we're preparing these kids for life, because some of them will never see that money ever again. I mean, most people don't make $500,000 or $250,000 a year or those type of things. And so we need to teach these athletes the skills that they need in order to make sure they're setting their lives up for success. Maybe being able to, hey, let's buy a house with this money, or let's not go spend it on cars necessarily or all these other things, but let's find ways that, one, you can make sure that money is growing, or working with a financial advisor long term so that you set up the rest of your life for success.
Yeah, we did an interview with you in 2021, and you kind of mentioned your entrepreneurial spirit and what your goals with your current media company, and just, like everything you wanted. You mentioned, you were quoted saying it's basically, it's about the next generation of Gen Z, about consuming content very differently, whether it be news, they don't watch TV, they handle things differently. Not to pivot on the conversation, but just, like with your media company and entrepreneurial spirit, like you went ahead of, like what a lot of athletes do. They typically envision themselves making it to the next level, and are often not set up for financial success because reality hits them in the face after they're done playing. Just talk a bit about like your entrepreneurial spirit and where the genesis of like Overnght started. Was it in your time in college or high school, or when were you starting to think about this?
That's a great question. I think for me, my entrepreneurial spirit kind of really started in high school, but when it really kind of started to flourish was in college. I think once I got a really bad concussion my redshirt sophomore year, I believe, at UCLA, and I couldn't play for a year. And what ended up happening was I spent that time networking with community leaders and boosters and other people to kind of learn what they were doing in life and how they achieved the success that they had, and finding mentors that I felt could serve me in my life, and I could learn from them, and they could teach me really valuable tools that I needed in life to be successful. I think that was a major thing, but I also think it was that during that time I realized that football was not going to be forever, and I think that conversation with yourself happens at different stages in every athlete's career. Some it happens when they finally get that last whistle or they get hurt or something like that. Some it happens when they get up to the NFL and they're cut from a team. And some it happens in college when they just are not on the field. And I think when you think about these things from a long-term perspective, I think I look back on my life now, and I'm not going to say I was happy that I was injured, but I would say that it taught me a lesson that I needed to be successful later on in life. And it's allowed me to be who I am and build the life that I've built thus far. And I think part of it is, you know, I have one of my biggest mentors in my life is a coach by the name of Ron Rivera. And I went to school with his daughter, and she's one of my best friends. And towards the end of my career, when I got earlier in my career, when I first got that concussion that kept me from playing, you know, he told me there's twice in my life that he stepped up and said, "Hey, look, Kev, you're a very intelligent young man. Don't go out there and play." And it was funny enough, that game that I wasn't going to go play was against Nevada. It was UCLA versus Nevada. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that conversation, he had a conversation with me at the end of my career when I was asking, hey, should I go out and do my pro day and those things? And he said straight up, he said, look, Kev, you are one of those athletes that will go out there and you'll make it on a team, you'll play for 2 years, but you will never make it to pension. Mm-hmm. But you will make far more money than a lot of your teammates just going out there in the world and building something great. And I was lucky enough that when I was ready to go build something great, him and his wife were the first people to support us. And they invested a good chunk of change in Overnght, and I'm forever grateful and blessed to have them in my life.
And we're talking about the same Ron Rivera that was the former Washington Commanders coach.
Yep.
Yeah, a great person and a great person to just character-wise. You know, just seeing him overcome, you know, his battle with cancer and to kind of lead that 2016 Panthers team was 2016.
2016 or 2015.
Yeah, one of those years. Just to see him, you know, like kind of fight back and lead that Panthers team to the Super Bowl. Yes, they fell short, but he's probably one of the more liked guys and well-respected coaches in the NFL. Obviously, didn't work out for your Commanders, but I'm sure you're pretty ecstatic when they hired him because that's a close friend, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he's a fabulous coach, and he's done so much to help so many people. And I've not met anyone that does not speak highly of him, right? I think what he's done in the Carolina community. And what he's done also in DC, you know, I think it's something to be admired as someone's come in, especially in very tumultuous times and towards the end of his time in Carolina, given that owner had to sell that team, and obviously in Washington, D.C., and the same thing. I think he was dealt a really bad deck, but he made the most of it. And I think what he's done is he's given opportunities to young men. And I think he's been able to help a lot of people. And so I think when it comes down to it, I think I look back on his time as he set that team up for success. They had the draft picks that they had. And my hope is that the new coach and new coaching staff can move that team forward, and that team can be successful. At the end of the day, I'm still a Washington fan growing up from the area, but I also think it's one of those things where, you know, I look and I was around during that time, and so I also kind of saw everything that was kind of going on there, and you know, I think he did the best that he possibly could in that situation, and obviously I'm sure there's things that he wishes he could have done differently, but I look back at those moments, and I think that coach really, during a really tough time, he was a steady hand as to move that organization forward.
You mentioned Rivera being a contributor to Overnght. You just celebrated 1 year in this September, right now. Just tell us a bit about that company and just what inspired you to launch it and how it's grown over this year.
Thank you for that, by the way. Yeah. Overnght is an Olympic sports streaming platform, and essentially we are subscription based. We are fortunate enough to be at over 51 universities around the country. We are streamed in about 27 countries around the world. We cover sports like rowing, artistic swimming, fencing, water polo, gymnastics, and other sports like that. And we kind of really found that it was founded on this belief that a bunch of my friends had just gotten home from the Olympics in 2021 because of COVID. And they were talking about how they didn't have a home. Their sports were often never seen, or no one could ever find them, or any of those things. And so I kind of saw that after I selling my last company in 2021. It was I ran business development for the largest meme company in the world. And we ended up selling that successfully, and I exited the company from there. But essentially, from that kind of step that we were in at that moment, I think it was one of those things where, looking at how we move this company forward, I've always been an athlete first. And I think that's been the biggest thing as we move this forward, is how do we help the athletes? How do we help the institutions make more money to support those athletes? And how do we make the sport more accessible, and bring more eyes and attention to these sports? And I think we've been really lucky to be able to do those things. But I think the vision of our team and the people around us, and our investors and people that support us, has been incredible. And, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't, one, for our subscribers, two, for our clients, and three, the people that back us and support us.
Yeah, how's that subscriber base going? Obviously, these are niche sports, but you mentioned the growth and scale. I mean, 23 different countries. That's pretty big.
What we found in these countries as we move forward is it's Olympic sports are really big in other countries. In football, we're obviously consumed with football and basketball and baseball and hockey, right? But all these other countries, especially in Europe, sports are huge. Rowing is humongous in Europe, all over, especially the UK, Australia, New Zealand, a lot of these countries like that. Water polo is huge in Serbia and those things. Look at the growth that we have, especially with one of our clients, USA Water Polo. They have a spokesperson being Flavor Flav that flies around the world with them and supports them. And we're now seeing this moment here where Olympic sports is finally getting its moment. And we're really proud that we were able to kind of help be on that leading moment of saying, hey, we believe in these sports long term, and we're going to support them at their core. And we're glad that they're finally getting that attention that they deserve, because those athletes work really hard, and those organizations and those people that are behind the scenes, they deserve that attention. And I'm really proud of that.
So you're obviously Mr. Worldwide. Not to call you Pitbull over here, but it seems like you travel a lot. But in chatting back and forth with your PR company, it seems like you're in Reno quite a bit. What typically brings you back to this community?
Honestly, I just love the people, and it's anytime I'm here, you probably find me at Pegs somewhere, anyone around town.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
It's also I love to just check in. Obviously, I look at people like the business school over at Nevada, University of Nevada. I don't say Reno just because I believe it's University of Nevada.
Yeah, no, it's a sin.
Those guys down south.
Yeah, it's a sin.
But it's been awesome of the way, even when I was here for 3 years, that because I played for 1 year and then the other 2 I was getting my education to get my master's, but the people here are just amazing, right? And they want to help people and those things, but also Tahoe is gorgeous, right? And I think that is, anyone and everyone around the world, I think, should see Tahoe. Just a beautiful place, and I probably spend every 4th of July up here in Tahoe, and I think it's one of those things where this community is going to continue to grow. The people here want to help people, and they want to see it grow. I think Brian Sandoval at the university has done an amazing job of growing the school and setting it on a pathway for success. And I also think my Dean Mosier, especially with the new business building and what they're building over there, it's incredible. And I'm also blessed that I get to come back and teach once a semester with Brett Simmons. So, I love this community. Community continues to open doors for me, and I will always support it.
Where do you call home right now?
Vegas.
Oh.
I know. But Vegas is growing into the sports capital of the world, and so
important.
It's one of those things where for us, you can get a direct flight from anywhere in the world, and honestly, we moved the company about a year ago from LA to Vegas and to the state of Nevada and the state as a whole, from economic development of what is going on in the state, has been incredible. And, I think at least for the startup community and some of the stuff that Heather is doing down there in Vegas, I also think that she is one of the board of regents as well in the state. But I think the things that they're doing down in the state of working to help startups and those things, I think is incredible. And we're really happy to have been in this state and being a part of that in those conversations.
Yeah, you mentioned Vegas becoming the sports capital. Obviously, a lot of media presence in that city. The UFC's down there doing content, all the time, and
Absolutely.
certainly, the boxing, while it has wound down in popularity compared to its height with Ali, Frazier, and all that, still demands a sizable chunk of money from companies like ESPN. Just like, how do you build this brand that you're going? Do you obviously envision newer practices with streaming, but do you also kind of take from the old model of ESPN and your traditional kind of TV conglomerates?
My belief on how we look at media rights is a little bit different than traditional ways of thinking. I believe that all of these companies can work together, if they choose to or not. That's a completely different conversation. Where we've been able to do is find our lane of essentially being able to work with a lot of these conferences to do what's best for the student athletes. It is not necessarily the best thing in the world to put Olympic sports on an ESPN Plus or any of those things when most of the time people are there for just football and basketball. And if you have to look 3 pages deep or go through those things, I don't necessarily think that that's fair for those student athletes, where they can be on a platform that really highlights them. But I think that ESPN has done a really good job of bringing sport to the world and to the masses. But I look at CBS and some of these other ones, I think there should not be content that is warehoused anywhere in the U.S. as a whole. We are far too built as a country in our infrastructure and the way that we look at and consume sports that I don't believe that content should be warehoused. And I think right now that is something that happens quite a bit, and it just hurts the student athlete. And I just want to find ways that we can all work together on this, build up something that's a package that takes care of the student athlete, the school, the conference, and everyone wins. And I think that's what we've done to be able to move this forward. And when we look at a deal, we look at it from a holistic approach. And that's why we've been able to find that success, right? It's not just about we're going to offer this amount of money to get this back in return. It's how does everyone win? And it may not feel like everyone won, but that's probably a good deal if everyone's sitting there and everyone's like, that hurt a little bit. But that's probably a better way to do business than a zero-sum win for one person.
Yeah, so tell me, we talk about obviously helping the athlete and all that. Have you guys explored going into NIL and partnering with these athletes on the obviously water polo side or whatever niche sport that may not be frontline America, but might be big over in Europe or something?
We have been exploring for the last 6 months or so this concept of we believe that athletes can win if the networks win, and it's something that we're really proud that we're probably going to be able to announce here pretty soon. I believe in that kind of notion. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, but that if the networks win, I believe the student athletes should win too, and we have to find ways to allow that to happen. And I think you're really right about that one.
So I went to your Instagram, pulled a quote, and just tell me what this means to you. Fail fast and fail often, because every failure is a stepping stone to improvement.
That was my one from my 1 year. When I look at football, has taught me many lessons in life, and I think the biggest lesson that I've ever had is sometimes you just got to stop thinking. And obviously you can be very calculated in the way that you move instead of have a vision pathway for it. But a lot of it is, so many times in life, I think people get stuck in this notion of, I have to plan. Sometimes it's better just to do, right? And figure it out. Because if you plan for 7 months and then all of a sudden you try something and it doesn't work, you just wasted 7 months of your life. For us, we're small enough as a company and we're nimble enough as a company, and our investors trust us and the people that are around us and a lot of our clients, that I'll try something. And if it doesn't work, cool, it doesn't work. But sometimes we just have to get out of our own way. And that's what kind of this whole fail fast and fail often is you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. 100% of them. But if I tried all the time, and yes, some things work out and some things don't, I'm still fine because I tried. And that's something that I think a lot of people really struggle with, is they don't get out of their own way when they want to start something. And I think that is the biggest thing here, is as long as you're moving, and it's similar to the football field. If you're moving and you're going 100 miles a minute, and you're probably not going to get hurt. But if you're thinking and you're slowing, you're going to get rolled up on, things are going to happen. And that's a lesson I've seen a million times in football. How many times has someone popped their ACL out because they were overthinking of where they should go and all those things, and they got hit or blindsided or something like that? And sometimes just running straight through works out much better for you.
Happened to me. I actually tore my ACL last October. Kind of funny. It was a similar situation. Going up for a layup in basketball, turned last second to pass the ball to the 3-point line, and I busted the ACL. So that was a perfect example of me overthinking and not doing. If I just went up, threw the layup up, if it was blocked, whatever, I'd still have my ACL, you know. But yeah, that's a good example, and you know, it's an important thing just to know, as you know. Just in terms of like life, you know, just go out there and try. They say 80% of success is just showing up. So certainly for myself, the areas I've improved as a professional have been because I failed at it. So yeah, an important message nonetheless. Kevin, it's been really nice talking with you. Before we get out of here, do you want to like say anything, like any updates with your company, any messages that you want to give to our audience?
Oh, absolutely. One, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I think it's been an incredible conversation. Everyone, please go out and subscribe to Overnght.com. There's no I in Overnght. I know those athletes would love to get your attention, and it'd be really incredible if you could go check that out.
Right on. Give me a prediction for this weekend's game, Nevada, Minnesota.
Oh, my heart says Nevada upsets them. But I'm going to go 23-27 Minnesota.
Hey, that's another cover, because I think they're currently like 13 or 14 point underdogs. So yeah, another cover. So that's another competitive game for Jeff Choate and co. I mean, hey, you want the wins, but if you're competing against a Big Ten team, that's also a good result.
I honestly think he's got that team ready to play.
Yeah.
And I think they turned, when I checked, I think it was 71 players they turned over from last year.
Yeah.
So completely different culture that's in that building, and I'm really really excited to see this growth and see where they go.
Well, we'll have to have you on again sometime in the future. We can talk more about Jeff Choate and see if Jaden Daniels is turning things around for your Commanders.
I hope he does.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a special edition of Inside the Den. We'll be back next time.